Welcome to week 3 of our journey of a stairway to a new human. You know, this week, after Reverend Sanders' talk last week, I had a dream. And I want to kind of open the service this morning, open the talk this morning about a dream. I don't know if you remember in Reverend Sanders' talk last week, she talked about our ancestors, you know, and she said, wow, she said, our ancestors are with us. And then she said, they're even in this room. And I said, whoa. I hadn't thought about that, right? But something about that went deep into my subconscious. So it's Tuesday night, and I'm having a dream. And in the dream, it's my time to give the talk, and I have completely forgot my notes. Not only have I forgotten my notes, I forgot what my talk was about. But it's my time to talk, and so I said to myself, you got to get out there. You just got to start talking and see what comes, you know. And I looked around, and over here on the right, there was just all these people at the service, and I noticed that they were, some of my relatives that had actually brought to our family our understanding of religion. I could see them. Then I looked behind me, and there were people there too, and there were these people who had been in my family when I was a child, and my one great uncle, how dreams are, he was there, and he was just so happy to be there. I mean, he was this kind of guy that, he didn't complete his high school, but he was very intelligent, right? Just very intelligent, and he was just smiling. And his hair was up like Einstein, And he had these big glasses on. And he just was exuding this, I'm really happy to be here. So a thought came to me of what I was to share. And I started to think, wow, what I'm getting ready to share was actually something I had prepared for our class this afternoon after church today about reading the Bible again for the first time. And it dawned on me, well, my ancestors, or at least my recent relatives who had made their transition, I'm not sure this is going to work for them. But I didn't have anything else, I just didn't have anything else. So I said, well, I got to go for it. And so this is what I had prepared for them, and what I had prepared for the class was this basic idea that the way you navigate reading the Bible, or the way you navigate your own spiritual life, will come down to how you interpret the story of Adam and Eve eating the apple from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, in the Garden of Unity Consciousness. I mean, it's going to come down to that. So, I've read that there are over 30 ways to interpret that story. I think in the book that we're going to be studying this afternoon, there's 5 basic ways laid out. But I had boiled it down to 2. And the 2 were this. It was the one my recent relatives had basically brought this understanding. They were exposed to this understanding, and I grew up with this understanding, right? And many of you probably grew up with it as well. The first one was that when they ate of the apple of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it was an act of disobedience to God, the original sin, and sin was introduced into the world, and humanity's nature was now fallen. We were no longer godlike. And in the case of Christianity, we needed a redeemer, right? In the case of Judaism, it was, it's an allegory of humanity's original human disobedience, and now we're into this place where we have to use our moral awareness and really learn about the consequences of free will and to take the journey that way. Now, the second view that I wasn't sure they were aware of, but I will tell you our ancestors, at least during that time of early Christianity, were definitely aware of this second view. Okay? The second view is that the story of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the story of the start of our journey of conscious spiritual evolution. It's a story of awakening to the unity of our masculine and feminine essence, and that all is one and one is all. In this view, eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, duality, Eating the apple is a necessary stage in experiencing the expansion of the expression of God as a human here on earth, here in the 3D plane. It was a necessary stage. It's the beginning of a conscious evolutionary journey to evolve through rising in consciousness, through rising the stairway that we're talking about, awakening to our own self and empowerment, and ultimately awakening to self-realization. So in view 2 in the garden, everything, is already in harmony and one. And in the second view, the essence of who you really are, has never left the garden. Let's explore. So for my relatives that were there at that speech, what they probably were not exposed to, at least the recent one, was this. That in that story, the names of Adam and Eve out of the garden are different than the names of Adam and Eve in the garden. Would you like to know? Yeah. This is not commonly taught. Because our Bible is in English, right? But if you go back and study it, you'll see that their names were changed, and it tells us a whole lot about the story. So in the garden, Adam and Eve are one. They are not separate individuals. They're not separate individuals. Now in the garden, Adam's name is Adamah. That name symbolizes unity or oneness and a deep connection to the earth. It means of the ground of the earth. Yeah. And a deep connection to it, right? Now, Eve's name in the garden is Isha. The name Isha represents her unity with Adam, or Adamah, and their shared nature of the awareness of unity with God. Now, out of the garden, after Adamah is cast out of the garden, his name changes to Ish. Ish represents conscious spiritual evolution. Ish also means individual. Man, a sense of individualism, right? A sense that I'm separate. And Adam also represents rationality and the shaping of the physical world. So Ish represents the active, rational, and structural aspects of human consciousness. Can we see that Ish is the lower 3 chakras? Ish is in existence. But there's something interesting about Ish in existence. His name has no indication that he has any life to him. You ever been in existence and have no life to you? Yeah. He needs the feminine to have life. And if you look at her name has life in it. Her name becomes Hava, representing the feminine archetype embodying aspects of procreation, the mother of all living, her name means, but it also means she is intuition and the awareness of the interconnectedness of all life, love. Tone, if you put that chart up there, you begin to see that why we're here is to bring those upper chakras, who is Eve, out of the garden, right? And all these aspects of love, of light, of inner wisdom, of intuition, and awareness of unity together in our existence. Actually, in Adam's name, he has existence. And in Eve's name, her new name, she has substance and she has life. But she needs Adam to bring that to this plane. So our whole journey becomes about uniting these two as one. Are you with me? Now we have the entire story is set up. It's very much set up that we are moving as humanity from these lower 3D consciousness chakras, right? That is, of the earth, into awakening to more and more of our upper chakras. And ultimately, we're going to get to week 5 where we visit the new human. You got 2 more weeks. and then you're responsible for the new human, okay? So in summary, the second view I was to share with my ancestors or relatives who have transitioned. It's the view that we are exploring in this series, okay? Several people have asked me questions about this. So I thought, well, let's just bring some clarity to it. There's a lot of ways to read that story, over 30 ways. I imagine there's even more than that. But here at Unity, we're reading that story as conscious spiritual evolution to awaken to our feminine nature. And that is the second coming of Christ. That's what it is. The second coming of Christ is the coming into this reality, the union of our feminine together with our masculine. That's what it is. So last week in week 2, Reverend Sanders, she reminded us that there is something that is the very authentic you, and she told us that it's always trying to mature itself. It's always trying to bring it to greater expression. And she asked us, is there a way that you're trying to abort that process? I mean, do you have things going on? Do you have thoughts going on about who you are? Do you have challenges going on with your esteem or with your worthiness? And then she just brought home this idea that she said, every baby is a blessing. Remember that? I mean, she asked us to get really, really clear that we are all children of God, no exception. What she was sharing with us, that second stair, is the second initiation that we all go through. It's a cleansing and a realization of who we are. It's baptism. It's what Jesus was demonstrating in baptism in the story. And we're going to look at that. You're going to see it very clear. The Bible is teaching us patterns, okay? It's teaching us patterns about conscious spiritual evolution. That's what it's teaching us. So in week 2, Reverend Sander hits that the second initiation is this baptism. Listen to what Neville Goddard teaches about the second initiation, baptism. Neville Goddard teaches, baptism is about getting clear that we are the Son of God. And once we're clear that we are the Son of God, we are ready to begin that ministry, to express that. It's getting clear that we are the Son of God. This brings us to week 3 in our stairway, where we've now been cleansed, we know who we are, and we're moving into realizing that we are self-empowered. We're not victims. We are actually that the very seed that God plants within us to bring to fruition. Any seed, any idea that God plants is fulfilled with the power to see it to fruition. And so we begin to learn, wow, I am self-empowered to realize the fruition of this idea. So what happens, though, as we begin to move in that, there's something unique that happens. But, I would say that when we move into that third stage, that self-empowerment stage, we're right at the heart of the Unity teachings, aren't we? I mean, we spend a lot of time there in Unity and New Thought. And I would say the self-help movement, it's really happened in the last probably 30 or 40 years. Could you agree with me on that? Yeah, that we really are waking up to the reality that we are self-empowered. But something interesting happens at that stage. Let's see if you relate with this. I mean, when you first start realizing I am self-empowered, and you start to learn about how to manifest, it's like everything's working. It's kind of like beginner's luck. Have you been there? It's like, wow, this stuff works. This stuff works, And you're just on this journey, and it's kind of magical. You ever been there? I remember that. I mean, I used to share with my mentor, I feel like I'm living in a fairyland. I mean, it's that kind of thing. Have you experienced that? Yeah. So you're awakening to this self-empowerment, but what happens in our third initiation is all of a sudden the magic starts to die. And the magic starts to die. And you say to yourself, was I just fooling myself? You ever been there? Was I just fooling myself? Is this really so? Was I just really making it up? And then you start to look around and not only do you start to thinking, it's just, was I making this all up? It's like, wow, things are actually getting worse. What's in front of me, it's like, whoa, this might not be so good, right? And so we have to go back to trusting our faith. This is the point, this is the third initiation of Jesus where he feels deserted. He's in the desert, he's in the wilderness, and he faces a temptation. So I would like to look at that temptation and what happens at that level. So he's been baptized and he's clear. He's clear. He's had the message, I am the Son of God, right? That's what happens at that second initiation. Now I want you to listen to what happens right after that in the desert. This is not about Jesus, this is about you, right? This is about you. And what happens after you begin to realize, I got some self-empowerment going on. Here's what it says in Matthew 4. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness and tempted by the devil. In other words, he's tempted by limiting 3D beliefs of the collective consciousness. Are you with me? Yeah, that's what the devil is. It's just these limiting beliefs that I'm not really the Son of God. Okay? So after fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, now pay attention here. Listen to the first question in this experience of temptation. He says, if you are the Son of God, you hear it? Yeah. You sure? Yeah. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him up to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point. And he says, if you are the Son of God, do you hear it again? Yeah. We gotta really move through this stage that we are the Son of God. We are self-empowered. He said, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up into their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Jesus answered him and said, it is written, do not put the Lord God to your test. So then the devil comes with the third one. It's like the big one, right? It's like you can have it all. It is. If you'll just navigate this world and turn away from this crazy idea that you're the Son of God and just use the 3D world's ways of winning, where there are winners and there are losers, where somebody gets hurt and you can have power over them. This is what he's tempting him with. So he says, again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. All this I will give to you, he said, if you will bow down and worship me. All this I will give to you if you'll just default to a life of 3D consciousness only, the consciousness of limitation. All this I'll give to you if you'll just deny your self-empowerment and who you are. And Jesus says, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. In other words, stayed on who you are, the Son of God. Are you with me? Yeah. That's the call. That's the call that Jesus let the devil know. Then the devil left him, and something amazing happens after he transcends this initiation. It says the angels came and attended to him and began to serve him as he was ready to step into his ministry. Are you with me? Yeah. He brought forth a whole host of angels to support him in this ministry, and you can too. You are as well. As Reverend Sanders said last week, this is not a linear process. You're going to go back and visit these things many times. At least that's my experience. Now listen to the exact words of this stairway story right after Jesus transcends the temptation. Again, the Bible is teaching us patterns about conscious spiritual evolution. And this is what's recorded actually in this story. It says that right after he transcended that, he starts his ministry, and he goes and he lives in a land called Capernaum. What is Capernaum? if you pick up the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, you'll find out that it's a place in the soul, in the third chakra, right? Where a great compassion and a yearning starts to arise to help humanity out of its errors of believing that it's only 3D. When you transcend that temptation and you begin to move into trusting that I am the Son of God, something begins to arise in you. A compassion. You're starting to move into your heart. You're starting to move into your heart. And this is what it says right after that. From that time on, Jesus began to preach. In other words, he moved into his ministry. When we move into our heart, we're really moving into our ministry, right? And then he says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. In other words, turn around. Go towards your fourth chakra. It's near. When we get to our heart, our ministry starts. I've talked to many ministers, or several ministers, who have shared with me the most powerful people in ministries are those who've come through some challenges, and they discovered that the only way to continue was through the heart, right? There comes a point when we have to move from me to we, and that's what this transition is moving into. When there begins to arise in you this fire in the belly to help us all rise to the new human, to all rise to this Eve or this Hava consciousness, and all begin to just develop this consciousness of love, of light, of inner wisdom, that really realizing we are all one, we're all in this boat together, and seeing others through the lens of compassion, your ministry becomes very, very powerful. This is our journey. The second coming of Christ is the bringing of these upper divine qualities. Charles Fillmore said that Jesus Christ was a new type of race forming on earth. And those who incorporate the Christ principles, these principles, the feminine principles, together, integrating, not getting rid of, not throwing away all that we've journeyed and learned here on 3D Life, but beginning to integrate all that with this higher consciousness, we begin to move into the new human. So now don't miss week 4. It's the key to starting to realize more of the new human at the 5th level. It is about transfiguration. That's the 4th initiation that he goes through. It's very much about this phase where we begin to wake up and say, my life is not my own. We're in this boat together. I'm an individual, yes, right? Remember, when they came to earth, when Adam came, there is this awareness that I'm individual, right? But we begin to awaken that, no, we're all connected together as one, even though we're having an individual experience. And we're all in this boat together. So come next week and realize your 4th initiation. Namaste.